Lyra Blackwood's muscles trembled as she held the final pose of her quantum dance routine. The practice chamber's holographic stars swirled around her, responding to the precise frequencies of her movements. 3 years of training had led to this moment, her certification performance for the Terra Dance Academy's most prestigious position, Quantum Choreographer First Class. "Your form is deteriorating, Miss Blackwood," called out Master Riven from his observation platform. "The quantum field requires absolute precision." Lyra gritted her teeth, maintaining the complex position while the measuring devices analyzed her quantum manipulation abilities. In traditional dance, beauty came from the flow of movement. But quantum dance was different. Each gesture had to resonate at exact frequencies to interact with spacetime itself. The chamber's sensors chimed, signaling the end of the evaluation. Lyra relaxed, brushing loose strands of copper hair from her face as she turned to face her instructor. Master Riven's expression was unreadable as he studied the readouts. "Your technical execution was adequate," he said finally, "but you lack discipline. The quantum field responds to emotion as much as motion. Your feelings bleed into your performance, creating unstable harmonics." "With respect, Master Riven," Lyra replied, "isn't that the point? The quantum field is alive. It needs to be felt, not just calculated." The old master's eyebrows drew together. "That kind of thinking is precisely why you remain frustratingly short of your potential. The field requires mathematical precision, not artistic interpretation." Before Lyra could argue further, alarms blared throughout the chamber. The holographic stars flickered and twisted, their carefully programmed patterns dissolving into chaos. "The containment field," Master Riven shouted. "Something's wrong with the quantum stabilizers." Lyra felt it before she saw it, a tremor in the fabric of spacetime itself. The quantum energies she had been manipulating were cascading out of control, creating a feedback loop that threatened to tear reality apart. Without thinking, she began to dance. Not the precise, measured movements of her certification routine, but something wild and instinctive. Her body moved in harmony with the destabilizing quantum field, trying to guide it back to balance. The stars spun faster around her, reality bending and warping with each gesture. "Miss Blackwood, stop," Master Riven's voice seemed to come from very far away. "You'll trigger a full quantum collapse." But Lyra couldn't stop. The dance had taken on a life of its own, her movements becoming one with the chaotic energy swirling through the chamber. She felt herself being pulled apart and reassembled with each step, each turn, each leap. The last thing she heard was Master Riven shouting for emergency containment protocols. Then the world dissolved into pure light. When Lyra's vision cleared, the practice chamber was gone. She stood in a vast hall with sweeping crystal arches that seemed to defy gravity. The air itself felt different, heavier, charged with an energy she had never encountered before. "Intruder in the Imperial Throne Room," a voice called out in a language she somehow understood despite never having heard it before. "Guards." Lyra turned to find herself facing a dozen armed figures in gleaming armor. Their weapons hummed with barely contained power. But it was the man seated on the crystalline throne behind them that drew her attention. He rose slowly, his movements precise and controlled. Tall and imposing, with features that seemed carved from marble and eyes that shifted color like quantum plasma. A crown of living light hovered above his head, casting shadows that danced across his face. "I am Emperor Zerk Voss of the Vesperian Empire," he said, his voice resonating with authority. "And you have just committed an act of quantum incursion into the most heavily guarded chamber in the galaxy." Lyra did the only thing that felt natural in such an impossible situation. She curtsied, nearly losing her balance in the process. "Lyra Blackwood, Quantum Dance Apprentice, Terra Academy," she managed a weak smile. "I don't suppose you'd believe this was all a terrible accident." The Emperor's eyes narrowed, and Lyra saw something flicker in their depths, curiosity perhaps, or calculation. "Quantum dance," he repeated. "There is no such discipline. The manipulation of quantum energies requires machinery, stabilizers, mathematical precision. It cannot be achieved through mere physical movement." "Well," Lyra said, straightening up and meeting his gaze directly, "Your Majesty might want to update your information. Because that's exactly what I do." A murmur ran through the assembled guards. Emperor Zerk raised a hand, silencing them instantly. He descended the crystalline steps of his throne, moving with a grace that reminded Lyra of a predator. "Prove it," he commanded. Lyra looked around the vast throne room, feeling the strange quantum energies that permeated this place. They were different from what she was used to, more complex, more alive. But underneath, the basic principles were the same. "I'll need some space," she said. The guards began to protest, but the Emperor waved them back, his eyes never leaving her. Lyra took a deep breath, centered herself, and began to dance. At first, she kept the movements simple, letting her body attune to the unfamiliar quantum frequencies of this place. But as she felt the energies respond to her, she grew bolder. Her gestures became more complex, each one sending ripples through the quantum field. The air around her began to shimmer, tiny points of light coalescing into shapes that moved with her. She wove them together, creating a miniature galaxy that spun and danced above the throne room floor. When she finally stopped, breathing hard, the silence was absolute. Emperor Zerk stood perfectly still, his color-shifting eyes wide with what might have been awe or fear. "Impossible," he whispered, then louder, "Guards, escort Miss Blackwood to the Quantum Research Wing, full security protocols but no restraints." He paused, studying her with renewed intensity. "It seems we have much to discuss." As the guards led her away, Lyra caught one last glimpse of the Emperor. He had returned to his throne but was leaning forward slightly, watching her departure with an expression that suggested he had just discovered something both fascinating and dangerous. She had a feeling her quantum dance accident was about to become much more complicated than she could have imagined. The quantum research wing of the Vesperian Palace was a maze of crystalline laboratories and humming equipment. Lyra sat on a scanning platform, surrounded by bewildered scientists who had spent the last 3 days trying to understand how her dancing could possibly manipulate quantum energy. "Again," said Dr. Norum, her primary researcher, adjusting his sensor arrays. The elderly Vesperian's skin shifted between shades of silver and blue when he was excited, which lately seemed to be constantly. "But this time, try the movement exactly as you did before." Lyra sighed but complied, executing a simple twirl that sent quantum ripples through the lab. The sensors chirped frantically. "Fascinating." Dr. Norum's skin turned almost white with excitement. "The quantum field responds to her molecular resonance patterns, but there's no technological interface. It's as if her nervous system naturally synchronizes with quantum frequencies." "That's what I've been trying to tell you," Lyra said, stopping her spin. "On Earth, quantum dancers train for years to achieve this connection. It's not about technology, it's about learning to feel the quantum field." "Impossible," declared a cold voice from the doorway. Lyra turned to find Lord Thuron, the Emperor's chief scientific advisor, watching with barely concealed disdain. His cybernetic enhancements gleamed in the lab's light, a testament to the Vesperians' belief that quantum manipulation required technological assistance. "The quantum field cannot be felt," Thuron continued. "It must be calculated, measured, controlled through precise mathematical equations and proper machinery." "Yet here I am," Lyra replied sweetly, executing another spin that sent the lab's quantum sensors into overdrive. "Maybe your equations need updating." Before Thuron could respond, the lab's entrance dilated again, revealing Emperor Zerk. Everyone immediately bowed, but Lyra noticed he seemed different today, less formal, wearing simpler robes though his crown of light still hovered above his head. "Report," he commanded. Dr. Norum practically tripped over himself to explain. "Her abilities are unprecedented, Your Majesty. She generates quantum resonance patterns we've only theorized about, if we could understand how." "You may continue your research," Zerk interrupted, "but first I require a private demonstration." His color-shifting eyes fixed on Lyra. "The Imperial Gardens, 1 hour." It wasn't a request. As the Emperor turned to leave, Thuron stepped forward. "Your Majesty, protocol requires all quantum experiments to be conducted under strict laboratory conditions. The risk is mine to take," Zerk finished. 1 hour, Miss Blackwood." The Imperial Gardens turned out to be a massive biodome filled with plants from across the galaxy. As Lyra followed a palace guide through winding paths, she noticed the quantum energy here felt different, wilder, more organic. She found Emperor Zerk waiting in a clearing surrounded by luminescent flowers. Without his formal regalia, she could better appreciate his striking features. The sharp angles of his face softened slightly by curiosity. "These gardens," he said without preamble, "contain species that naturally manipulate quantum energy for survival. Our scientists have spent centuries studying them, trying to understand their methods." He gestured to a nearby bloom that seemed to exist in multiple places at once. Perhaps you can show me how they do it. Lyra approached the flower, feeling the quantum currents that flowed through it. May I? At his nod, she began to dance, not the formal patterns she'd shown in the lab, but something gentler, matching the natural rhythms of the garden. The flowers responded, their quantum fields harmonizing with her movements. To her surprise, Zerk stepped closer, watching intently. You're not controlling the quantum field, he observed. You're participating in it. Exactly, Lyra exclaimed, continuing her dance. That's what my instructors never understood. The quantum field isn't just something to be commanded, it's alive in its own way. You have to work with it, not force it. Show me. Lyra stopped mid-motion, startled. What? Show me how to dance with quantum energy. His expression remained serious, but there was something almost vulnerable in his request. Eyes well, okay, she held out her hand. First, you need to feel the quantum currents, not with instruments, with your body. After a moment's hesitation, Zerk took her hand. His skin was cooler than human normal, and Lyra felt a subtle vibration where they touched, like their quantum frequencies were trying to align. Close your eyes, she instructed, trying to ignore the flutter in her stomach. Feel how the energy moves through the garden through you. She guided him through a simple sequence of steps, surprised by how quickly he adapted to the movements. The quantum field responded to them both, creating patterns of light that danced around them like stars. This is, Zerk opened his eyes, wonder briefly replacing his usual stern expression. I've never experienced quantum energy like this. Our technology lets us manipulate it, but this is natural, Lyra finished, the way it's meant to be experienced. They were standing very close now, their quantum frequencies still trying to synchronize. Lyra became acutely aware that she was holding hands with the emperor of an interstellar empire in a garden full of quantum-sensitive flowers. The moment shattered as alarms blared throughout the palace. Zerk stepped back immediately, his walls slamming back into place. Your Majesty, guards rushed into the garden. We have reports of quantum anomalies throughout the capital. Lord Thuron demands your presence in the emergency council chamber. Zerk's expression hardened. Return Miss Blackwood to the research wing, full security protocols. He paused at the garden's entrance. We will continue this discussion another time. As guards escorted her away, Lyra could still feel the ghost of his touch, and the strange way their quantum frequencies had tried to merge. Something was happening, something beyond dancing or science or imperial protocol. And judging by the worried looks the guards exchanged, she wasn't the only one who sensed it. The quantum disruptions are spreading, Lord Thuron announced to the assembled Imperial Council. Sensors report anomalies across 17 districts of the capital. His cybernetic eye focused accusingly on Lyra. All beginning shortly after the arrival of our guest. Lyra stood before the council, trying not to fidget under their scrutiny. She'd been summoned from her quarters in the middle of the night, barely having time to don the formal Vesperian robes provided to her. Emperor Zerk sat on his crystalline throne above the proceedings, his expression unreadable. I've done nothing to cause these disruptions, she said firmly. My quantum dancing is controlled, focused. These anomalies are something else entirely. Are they? Thuron activated a holographic display showing waves of chaotic quantum energy surging through the city. Our analysis shows these patterns match your unique quantum signature. That's impossible, Dr. Norum interjected, his skin rippling with agitated silver patterns. Miss Blackwood's abilities, while remarkable, don't have nearly this range or intensity. Unless, came a quiet voice from the shadows, she has help. A new figure stepped into the light, a woman with metallic scales instead of skin and eyes that seemed to contain galaxies. Lyra recognized her as Lady Venna, the Emperor's mystic advisor, whose predictions were said to be unnervingly accurate. What do you mean help? Emperor Zerk leaned forward, his crown of light flickering with interest. The human's quantum frequency is no longer singular, Lady Venna said, moving closer to study Lyra. It has begun to harmonize with another, a most powerful one. The council chamber erupted in whispers. Lyra felt her face flush as she remembered the strange resonance she'd felt while dancing with Zerk in the garden. Impossible, Thuron declared, but his cybernetic enhancements were worrying anxiously. Quantum harmonization between species has never been documented, the biological differences are irrelevant to the quantum field, Lady Venna interrupted. The frequencies align or they don't, species is meaningless. Emperor Zerk stood abruptly, silencing the chamber. Leave us, he commanded, all of you. Your Majesty, Thuron protested, protocol requires. Out. The council members filed out, leaving Lyra alone with the Emperor and Lady Venna. As soon as the doors sealed, Zerk descended from his throne, his usual rigid control showing cracks of concern. Explain, he demanded. Lady Venna circled them both, her scaled skin shifting colors like oil on water. When two quantum-sensitive beings develop a connection, their frequencies naturally try to align. Usually this requires years of effort, special conditions, careful monitoring, but sometimes, she smiled knowingly, sometimes the universe has other plans. The garden, Lyra whispered, when we danced. Yes, Lady Venna nodded. The first synchronization, but not the last. Your frequencies have been reaching for each other ever since, growing stronger, more insistent. The disruptions in the city are merely echoes. Zerk paced, his crown of light pulsing erratically. This cannot be allowed. The imperial line must maintain quantum purity. The traditions are killing your empire, Lady Venna said bluntly. You know this, Zerk, the rigid structures, the technological dependence, the fear of natural quantum manipulation. Your people are stagnating. And what? He demanded. You suggest I throw away centuries of tradition because one human can dance with quantum energy. I suggest you listen to what the universe is trying to tell you. Lady Venna's galaxy eyes fixed on him. Why do you think her quantum frequency matches yours so perfectly, of all the beings in all the cosmos? Lyra felt it then, the pull between them stronger than ever. The quantum field swirled around them both, trying to bridge the gap they insisted on maintaining. I should go, she said quietly, turning toward the door. No, Zerk's voice stopped her. When she looked back, he had removed his crown of light, setting it aside. Without it, he seemed younger, more vulnerable. Show me again how to dance with the quantum field, please. Lady Venna smiled and slipped away as Lyra took Zerk's hands. This time, when they began to move together, the quantum harmonization was immediate and intense. Light danced around them, reality itself seeming to hold its breath. This is dangerous, Zerk murmured, but he didn't pull away. Everything worth doing is, Lyra replied, guiding him through the steps of a quantum dance she was creating on the spot. Feel how the energies want to flow naturally, that's what your empire's missing. You've tried to force quantum energy into rigid patterns, but it needs to be free. Like you, he said softly. Their faces were very close now, their quantum frequencies singing together in perfect harmony. Lyra could see flecks of gold in his color-shifting eyes, feel the cool touch of his skin against hers. The moment shattered as emergency alarms blared throughout the palace. The doors burst open, revealing Thuron with a squad of heavily armed guards. Arrest her, he commanded. The human has compromised His Majesty's quantum signature. By law, this is an act of treason. Stand down, Zerk ordered, but Lyra could see the conflict in his eyes. Emperor versus man, tradition versus change. I'm sorry, Your Majesty, Thuron said, not sounding sorry at all. But the law is clear. The human must be contained before she can further contaminate the imperial quantum line. As guards moved to seize her, Lyra did the only thing she could think of. She began to dance. But this time she wasn't alone. Zerk's quantum frequency merged with hers, amplifying her movements into something unprecedented. The last thing she saw before reality itself bent around them was Thuron's look of horror, as the Emperor of the Vesperian Empire chose to dance with a human quantum dancer, rather than maintain the traditions of his ancestors. The quantum surge from Lyra and Zerk's combined dance had transported them to the outskirts of the capital, deep within an abandoned quantum research facility. Ancient machinery hummed with residual energy, casting eerie shadows through the crystalline architecture. That, Lyra said, catching her breath, was not my most controlled performance. Zerk was examining their surroundings, his natural grace somewhat diminished by their abrupt arrival. This is the old institute. It was sealed decades ago when quantum experiments here became too unstable. He turned to her, his color-shifting eyes troubled. What exactly did we do back there? We danced, Lyra replied simply. Our quantum frequencies merged completely. I've never experienced anything like it. Neither has anyone else. They both turned to find Lady Venna emerging from the shadows, her metallic scales reflecting the dim light. The guards are searching the wrong sector. We have some time. You followed us, Zerk's tone was sharp. I followed the quantum wake you two created. Lady Vena's galaxy eyes sparkled with amusement. Half the capital felt it. You've certainly given Lord Thuron the evidence he needed to declare a crisis. The quantum disruptions in the city, Lyra realized. They weren't just echoes of our connection, they were warnings. Love what? Of this, Lady Vena gestured, and holographic data filled the air around them. Your quantum synchronization isn't just unprecedented, it's catalyzing changes throughout the Empire's quantum network. The rigid structures we've relied on for centuries are beginning to evolve. Zerk studied the data, his expression growing more concerned. These patterns, they're spreading beyond the capital. Of course they are, said a new voice. Dr. Norum emerged from behind a bank of old machinery, his silver-blue skin pulsing with excitement. Natural quantum manipulation wasn't lost to us, we abandoned it, chose technology and control over harmony and evolution. But the potential remained dormant in our species. Until now, Lady Vena added, until a human quantum dancer showed us another way. Lyra felt Zerk's quantum frequency shift beside her, uncertainty, fear, and something else. Something stronger. If what you're saying is true, he said slowly, then our synchronization isn't just changing the quantum field. It's changing my people. For the better, Dr. Norum insisted. Already, we're seeing increased quantum sensitivity in the younger generation. Natural abilities emerging that our technology could never replicate. Which is exactly why Thuron and his followers want to stop it, Lady Vena said grimly. Their power relies on controlling quantum energy through technology, if people can access it naturally. They become free, Lyra finished. She turned to Zerk, taking his hands. Like when we danced, no machines, no rigid protocols, just pure connection with the quantum field. The facility's lights flickered as their frequencies began to harmonize again. This time, Lyra could feel the resonance spreading beyond them, reaching out into the quantum network that connected the entire empire. It's beautiful, Zerk whispered, watching the patterns of energy dance around them. All these years, we thought we had to force the quantum field into submission, but it was waiting for us to learn to dance with it. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. Dr. Norum rushed to check the ancient monitoring systems. Thuron's forces have discovered our location, he reported. And, something else, the quantum disruptions are accelerating, the entire network is destabilizing. No, Lady Vena corrected, her scales shifting to deep violet. It's not destabilizing, it's transforming. The question is, she looked pointedly at Zerk, will you let it? The Emperor of the Vesperian Empire stood silent for a moment, his crown of light long abandoned, his quantum frequency singing in harmony with Lyra's. Finally, he spoke. My ancestors built this empire on the belief that quantum energy must be controlled, regulated, bound by tradition and technology. He squeezed Lyra's hands, but they never learned to dance. The facility's doors burst open, admitting Thuron and a squad of heavily armed guards. The cybernetic advisor's enhancements were sparking with barely contained energy. Step away from the human, Your Majesty, he commanded. The Council has declared a state of emergency. The quantum network must be stabilized before. Before what? Zerk's voice rang with authority. Before my people remember that quantum energy isn't just a resource to be exploited, before they learn they don't need your technology to connect with it. The traditions exist for a reason, Thuron snarled. Without control, without proper regulation, the quantum field will tear our society apart. No, Lyra said quietly, feeling the energy building around them. It'll set your society free. As guards raised their weapons, Lyra and Zerk began to dance. But this time, they weren't alone. Throughout the capital, throughout the empire, others were feeling the call of the quantum field, remembering abilities their ancestors had forgotten. The last thing they saw before quantum light engulfed the chamber was Thuron's cybernetic eyes shorting out, as natural quantum energy overwhelmed his technological enhancements. The revolution wouldn't be calculated or controlled. It would be danced. 1 month after what historians would later call the Quantum Dance Revolution, the Imperial Palace's Grand Ballroom hosted an unprecedented celebration. Gone were the rigid quantum dampeners and technological controls. Instead, the quantum field flowed freely, responding to the movements of hundreds of Vesperians who had rediscovered their natural abilities. Lyra watched from a balcony as young and old alike experimented with quantum dance, their movements unpracticed but enthusiastic. Dr. Norum was in the thick of it, his silver-blue skin practically glowing as he helped a group of children understand how to feel the quantum currents. "Quite a change from the formal imperial galas," said Lady Venna, appearing beside her. The mystic's metallic scales now shifted colors in rhythm with the quantum field, though some are adapting better than others. She nodded toward a corner where Lord Thuron sat, most of his cybernetic enhancements removed, looking lost. The former advisor had survived the quantum surge, but his technological means of controlling quantum energy hadn't. Like many of the old guard, he was struggling to accept a world where quantum manipulation came through dance rather than machines. "Change isn't easy," Lyra acknowledged, "especially when you've built your entire identity around the old way of doing things." "Speaking of change," Lady Venna's galaxy eyes twinkled, "the council is waiting." Lyra took a deep breath and headed for the Imperial Audience Chamber. The massive doors, once powered by quantum tech, now responded directly to the quantum field's natural flow. Inside, the Imperial Council had been transformed. Younger members sat alongside the traditionalists, and everyone's quantum frequencies resonated freely, creating a symphony of energy that would have been considered dangerous just weeks ago. Emperor Zerk stood as she entered, and Lyra felt their quantum frequencies reach for each other automatically. He no longer wore the crown of light. Instead, the quantum field itself seemed to illuminate him from within. "The council has reached a decision," he announced, but his color-shifting eyes were fixed on Lyra. "The position of Imperial Quantum Choreographer has been created. Its holder will be responsible for teaching natural quantum manipulation throughout the Empire, helping our people reconnect with abilities we foolishly abandoned." Lyra smiled. "And who did you have in mind for this position?" "Actually," Zerk's formal tone softened, "I had hoped to offer you a different role entirely." He descended from the throne and took her hands. Their quantum frequencies merged instantly, creating patterns of light that danced around them both. "The old laws required the Imperial line to maintain quantum purity," he said. "But those laws were written by people who feared what they couldn't control, who never imagined that a human quantum dancer could teach an empire to trust its own nature again." Lyra felt tears forming in her eyes. "Zerk, the council has approved my request to amend the succession laws. If you're willing," he pulled her closer, "I'd rather dance with you than rule alone." Their first kiss sent quantum ripples throughout the palace, but nobody minded. The Vesperian Empire was learning a new way to move through the universe, and its emperor and his quantum dancer would lead the way. Later, during the celebration, Lyra found herself back on the balcony, watching Vesperians of all ages and backgrounds dancing with quantum energy. "Missing Earth?" Zerk asked, joining her. "Sometimes," she admitted, "but Master Riven always said I needed to learn discipline to control my emotions when I danced." She turned to her emperor, her partner, her fellow dancer. "Turns out I just needed to find the right partner to dance with. And now an entire empire is learning your steps." "Our steps," she corrected, pulling him into a dance that sent quantum light spiraling around them. "Everything's better with the right partner." Below them, Dr. Norum was attempting to teach Lord Thuron a basic quantum dance sequence. The former advisor was awkward but trying, his remaining cybernetic components glinting in the quantum light. Lady Venna appeared briefly on a nearby balcony, her scales reflecting the celebration's energy. "The quantum field remembers," she said cryptically. "It was waiting for someone to remind us how to listen to it." As Lyra and Zerk danced above their transforming empire, she thought about the quantum accident that had brought her here. Perhaps it hadn't been an accident at all. Perhaps the quantum field itself had been waiting for the right moment, the right dancers, to show a civilization that had lost its way how to move in harmony with the universe again. "Ready to help an empire learn to dance?" she asked Zerk. His color-shifting eyes sparkled as he pulled her closer. "With you, always." And as they moved together, their quantum frequencies singing in perfect harmony, Lyra knew she had found exactly where she was meant to be. Not as a decoration or a curiosity, but as a partner in the greatest dance of all, the dance of change, of growth, of love. The quantum field swirled around them, no longer bound by technology or tradition, free to flow and dance and transform, just as it was always meant to do. Just as they were always meant to do. Together,